Dick morning, gathering some firewood, and this is the last batch that I've gathered. There's been a considerable amount, and the larger diameter, the trunks, have all gone. I virtually gave them away, the proceeds, to charity, but it was a nominal amount. I really needed the wood clear, and they range, some of them, from about 14 inches diameter. And the chap who gathered it decided that really 4 or 5 inches was the minimum diameter that he would consider. But as the bolt fell into that, he took them. So we're remaining now with the branches which came off, and these are a mixture of hardwoods. And it's an odd thing really, because I've been involved with woodlands for probably since about 2004, off and on, owning some woodlands, and harvesting wood is very arduous. It's hard work. Cutting into logs is even more arduous, and I find it somewhat difficult to understand why people actually want logs. Now, the logs that I cut were not really short enough to go into a burner, so they would need additional cutting with a chainsaw, reducing their length, and then they would need splitting. That's a lot of work. Those who are living in barges, camper vans, and have a small wood burning stove, I put this, my experience, and offer it to you. The smaller diameter branches are the way to go. They're far easier. The other thing that you're able to do is to cut them with a chop saw, cheap chop saw with perhaps a 9-inch blade, and that will be optimum, and you will be able to, with a twin cut something up to 4 or 5 inches diameter. It's a lot easier. The process is taken on a workbench, and of course you can then push the cut section into a wheelbarrow, but you don't have the involvement of lifting heavy pieces of wood and splitting them, and then having to pick up the split halves. That is a lot, and it's time consuming, and it doesn't work. The smaller diameter branches are the way to go. Everything about them. Now, their calorific value is equal to that of the larger pieces of wood, and in some way they can be even more energy efficient, because they're smaller diameter, they dry more quickly. And it's very difficult even now, splitting the wood, and we're now into July, to actually season that down. You've really only got about a month to reduce that moisture content, and moisture content is prime to getting the most benefit from wood. Now, if you're lucky, you'll be able to air dry this down to about 20%, depending on what the weather's like. But of course, bear in mind that as the autumn approaches and damper weather, the moisture content is going to rise. So all these numbers which are predicted to for wood pellets, that really depends, and the moisture content on wood pellets can easily rise to 10%. Take the instance of Heathrow Airport. Their biofuel plant was sooting up, and it was found, because the pellets were transported in open bulk carriers, that the moisture content was above 10, and that started sooting. Now, if you've got one of the mini stoves in your camper van, just bear in mind the energy content you're likely to get from 1 kilogram of air dried, air seasoned wood. If it's hardwood, you're probably looking at around 2.5 to 3 kilowatts per kilogram of wood. Of course, the larger the stove is, the more dissipation of the heat. So it doesn't work in a straight line graph. It's a curved graph, and moisture content certainly depletes the energy output, but also the size of the burner. Because if it's slower burning, there are other issues which come in. So you want the smallest size burner that you're possible, and there is, I think, the little what's it called? Goodness me, I'll see them. They're on eBay, and small little, well-made little stove, around £400, and for that you'll need, I would suggest, a chop saw, chopping down branches and loading that into the stove. and you will get a consistent, probably kilowatt of heat out of it, perhaps 1.5 kilowatts by burning timber. Timber, 0% moisture, will give you, with softwood and the bark included, will give you around 4.5 kilowatts per kilogram. So working back, if you're cutting wood and the moisture content's up to 20, I think, as I said before, you may get 2.5 kilowatts out of a kilogram of firewood. So don't write off the branches. They're easier to work with, they're easier to cut. A chop saw will work, and a chop saw is far more efficient working than a chainsaw. A chainsaw is totally unproductive when you come to process working. The chop saw is far easier to handle, quicker to dry out, and easier to stack. Everything about it is more positive. So perhaps think laterally about the fuel you're going to use, and if you're able to get branches, the ones here are probably 1.5 inches, largest is going to be 4 inches diameter. Consider those. So don't write it off. Most people do not want wood this size because they've never really considered the advantages of it. Small is beautiful. Also keep the stove as small as possible. Little Nelly is the name of the stove, and I think it looks a pretty good option, and I hope that's helpful to you. I've number crunched calorific values from timber for many years, and I've arrived at this. It's not so much the timber, but it's the size of it and the energy input into obtaining the heat, and you want minimal. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope it's been some benefit to you. If you have any comments, please leave them below. I'm always interested with alternative lifestyles. Thanks again. Bye.